The morning they disowned me, my mother was wearing pearls and my father had a glass of scotch in his hand at 10 a.m. You'd think it was some kind of celebration. But no, it was the day they erased me. My name, my place in the family, my future, all of it gone, because I said 6 words: I won't marry the man you chose. My father didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. He just stared at me like I was a stranger, like I was something beneath him. My mother, though she didn't flinch, she took off the gold bracelet she once gave me and said, "You're not our daughter anymore, not after this." In that moment, I understood something devastating. I had never truly been a daughter. I was an investment, a pawn in a quiet deal they had spent years constructing a marriage designed not around love, but around power, reputation, and control. And I ruined it. I didn't walk away from love. I walked toward freedom. But nobody tells you how expensive freedom is when the price is your own family pretending you never existed. This isn't just my story. It's a warning. Because when love becomes currency, daughters become bargaining chips. And when I refused to be sold, I found out just how cold blood can run. Some parents love control more than they love their children. And mine made that brutally clear. Let me show you how it all started and what they were willing to do just to make me obey. It didn't happen overnight. Looking back, the signs were everywhere. I just didn't know what I was looking at. My parents had always been particular. We weren't a family that did things spontaneously. Every dinner was scheduled, every vacation had an itinerary, every birthday had a guest list approved by my mother. But I was the obedient one, the good daughter. The girl who got straight A's, never stayed out past curfew, and always smiled in family photos, no matter what was happening behind the scenes. I think that's why they thought I'd never say anything for myself. I remember coming home with my diploma, beaming with pride, and all my mother said was, "So what's next? Have you thought about settling down?" I laughed. I thought she was joking, but she wasn't. That was the first time I heard his name, Nathan. I didn't know it then, but my life was already being negotiated. At first, it was subtle. Nathan was the son of my father's longtime business partner, and apparently, he had always taken an interest in our family. My parents began inviting him over for dinners, holiday parties, and weekends at our lake house. I kept asking why he was always there. My mother would say, "He's just polite." My father would say, "It's good to be around ambitious people." But the truth was, Nathan wasn't there for them. He was there for me, and I hated it. He wasn't a terrible person. He was polite, charming in that empty sort of way, and always brought my mother flowers. But every conversation felt rehearsed. Every compliment he gave me felt like it came from a script. And when I told my parents I wasn't interested in dating him, they acted like I'd just insulted the family name. That's when the pressure started. It wasn't direct at first. My father would make comments like, "You're not getting any younger," or "Stability is more important than romance." My mother would leave bridal magazines on my nightstand, send me links to wedding venues, just for fun, and remind me that every woman needs someone to take care of her. I tried to tune it out. I focused on my career, got a job at a small architecture firm, moved into a cozy one-bedroom apartment downtown, and started designing my own life brick by brick. For the first time, I felt free, independent, in control. And then, out of nowhere, Nathan proposed. Not in private, not in some personal, respectful setting. No, he did it at my parents' annual holiday gala in front of 150 people, under a chandelier with a photographer already in position. I was frozen. Everyone was clapping. My mother had tears in her eyes. My father looked like a king watching his plan unfold perfectly. And there I was, standing in the center of a room I suddenly didn't recognize, realizing I was nothing more than a character in a script they had written without me. I didn't say yes. I didn't say anything. I just walked away, straight out of the ballroom, into the cold December air, and kept walking until my heels blistered and my phone wouldn't stop ringing. My mother left me 8 voicemails. The first was panic. The second was confusion. By the 8th, she was furious. That night, I didn't sleep. I just stared at my ceiling, wondering if I had imagined the whole thing. But when I opened my email the next morning, there it was, an invitation to a family meeting at 9 a.m. sharp. Formal tone. No apology, no concern, just an order. I went. And that's where the real story begins. I walked into the house I grew up in, but it didn't feel like home. Everything looked the same: the grand staircase, the smell of jasmine tea, the polished floors, but the warmth was gone. It felt like I had stepped into a museum, or worse, a courtroom. My parents were already seated at the dining table. My mother sat with her back perfectly straight, a folder in front of her like she was about to present a corporate merger. My father had his fingers steepled, like a man ready to deliver a verdict. No one said good morning. My mother motioned to the chair across from her. I sat down, and for a moment, the silence was so loud it felt like the walls were listening. Then she spoke. "We're disappointed in how you handled yourself," she said, voice crisp like paper. "Do you realize how many people were watching? How embarrassing that was for us?" I stared at her, stunned. No concern for how I felt. No mention of how uncomfortable or pressured I'd been. Just shame because I hadn't performed on cue. My father picked up from there, saying it was unacceptable and disrespectful, that I had embarrassed the family in front of our closest allies. Allies. Not friends. Not guests. Allies. Like this was a war and I'd betrayed their army. Then came the list. They actually had a list. My mother opened the folder and began reading bullet points: Nathan's credentials, his family background, the potential business gains of the marriage. She called it a strategic alignment. My life. My future. My heart. Strategic alignment. I asked them, calmly at first, "Did you ever think to ask me if I loved him?" My mother's expression didn't change. "Love fades," she said, "but legacy lasts." I looked at my father, hoping for something human. He just said, "You're too old to be chasing fairy tales." That's when I realized they never saw me as a person with feelings. I was an asset, a bridge, a tool, and when I refused to play along, they saw me as a liability. I stood up. My voice shook, but I spoke clearly. "I won't marry someone I don't love. I won't sacrifice myself for your deals. If that means you're ashamed of me, then so be it." My mother didn't flinch. "If you walk away from this, don't expect anything from us," she said coldly. "Not our support, not our money, not even our name." My father added, "You'll be on your own, entirely. Don't come back asking for help." And just like that, it was over. 18 years of obedience, of trying to be the perfect daughter, of honoring every rule, wearing every mask, saying every scripted line. All undone in a 5-minute meeting that felt more like a boardroom dismissal than a family conversation. I walked out without saying another word. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just felt numb, like I'd been hollowed out. The second I got outside, the cold air hit me like a slap. And that's when it sank in. I wasn't just leaving a house. I was leaving an identity, a role. A version of myself they had built since I was old enough to speak. I took a cab back to my apartment and sat on my bed for hours, staring at nothing. My phone buzzed once. It was a text from my mother. Just 2 words. "You chose." And she was right. I had chosen. Not between 2 men, but between being who they wanted me to be and who I actually was. That night, I opened a blank document on my laptop and started writing down everything, every manipulation, every time they made me feel small, every lie disguised as advice. I didn't know it then, but I was beginning the process of reclaiming my voice. I didn't just lose my family that week. I lost the illusion that they ever truly loved me for me. But something else started to grow in the silence they left behind. The truth. And it would change everything. The days that followed were quiet in the most deafening way. There were no more voicemails, no surprise visits, no concerned relatives calling to mediate. It was as if I had vanished from the family tree entirely. My name wasn't mentioned in group texts. My birthday passed without a single message. I was mourning something that technically wasn't dead, but it might as well have been. I threw myself into work. I picked up extra projects, worked weekends, designed until my hands cramped. It wasn't just about distraction. It was about proving to myself that I could exist, function, thrive, even outside of the structure they built for me. But at night, when the city lights flickered through my window and everything slowed down, the silence turned into questions. Was I wrong? Was love worth this kind of loneliness? What if they were right and I was just being selfish? I missed the idea of having parents more than the parents themselves. I missed believing someone had my back without strings attached. Then came the letter. It arrived on a Thursday, handwritten in thick cursive, the envelope unmarked. I almost threw it out, thinking it was junk. But something about the paper felt intentional. When I opened it, I saw the name at the bottom first. Aunt Josephine, Mother's estranged sister. I hadn't seen her since I was 13. The family never talked about her much. All I remembered was whispers about rebellion and disgrace. The letter was short, but it shook me. I heard what they did. I went through it too. You're not alone. Come find me. That was it. No address, no phone number, just those lines, written like a lifeline tossed into the ocean. I spent hours researching, finally tracking down her art studio in a small coastal town 3 hours away. I hesitated for days before going, but something inside me said this wasn't coincidence. It was legacy calling, but not the kind my parents believed in. When I arrived, Aunt Josephine greeted me with a warm hug and eyes that looked like mine. She poured tea without asking, as if we'd had this conversation before, and then she told me everything. She had been in the same position I was, pressured into an arranged marriage, cut off when she refused. She had walked away with nothing, and built a life from scratch painting, teaching, living in a small cottage filled with light and silence she chose for herself. "They'll tell you you've ruined everything," she said. "But really, you've broken the curse. The one that says women in this family are only valuable if they're compliant." I cried harder than I had in months. Not because I was sad, but because someone finally understood without me having to explain. She didn't try to fix me. She just listened. And then, something even more shocking happened. She handed me a box. Inside were letters my mother had written to her years ago. Angry letters, blaming her for destroying the family image, but also hidden between the lines. Fear, regret. My mother had once been like me, but she'd chosen obedience, control, and lost her sister in the process. I stayed with Aunt Josephine for a weekend, but I left with something bigger than closure. I left with a sense of direction. I wasn't broken. I was brave. And I wasn't starting from nothing. I was starting from truth. In the weeks that followed, I redesigned my life with intention. I launched my own architecture. Studio small, scrappy, but mine. I filled it with interns like Creative, a little wounded but fiercely independent. I told my story on a podcast, then a blog, then in a short TED-style talk at a women's summit. And it resonated. Emails poured in. Daughters from all walks of life, all backgrounds, all cultures, writing to say, "This is my story too." And that's when I realized something. I may have lost my parents, but I gained a sisterhood, a tribe, a community of women who chose themselves and paid the price, but still stood tall. Then, one day, I got another letter. This one from my mother. No apology, no admission of guilt, just one line. "Your aunt always ruined things between us." I didn't reply, not because I hated her, but because I had nothing left to give. I had poured every ounce of myself into trying to be enough for them. And now, I was finally enough for me. And that was all that mattered.